Welcome back, everybody. I hope you had a great break and made quite good use of all of the additional features that we offer in networking and all the booths that you can visit. And with that, and without further ado, I am super excited to welcome our first speaker of the evening track. So, Quharrison Terry has a remarkable background as an entrepreneur and marketing expert. He is a growth marketer at Cuban companies where he advises and assists portfolio companies with their marketing strategies. Previously, he led marketing at Redox, and he has been featured in various publications such as the Huffington Post, and he is a regular speaker at several large-scale events such as CES, South by Southwest, and TEDx. He will share his insights on the future thinking frameworks for trends in an ever-evolving world. Please welcome Quharrison Terry.
Yo, what's up? How you been? Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine. Thank you so much for being with us.
Likewise, thank you for having me. I am going to talk today about future thinking frameworks, and I'm going to pull up some slides up here, make sure that this all works. If you are joining us live, I would want to do a few things. One, throw where you're from and where you're watching this from in the comments and chats. I'm going to be watching that live during the talk, and we're going to have some fun with this talk today. I'm going to keep it brief, and I would say this isn't going to be a long talk by any means necessary, because I feel like when it comes to this virtual world and us getting to know each other, the Q&A and networking is probably a bit more important here, because we're all in our homes, so our attention spans are a little bit more elaborate, but at the same time, things have to be really cool and exciting for things to make sense. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, drop in the comments where you're coming from. I do want this to be a bit more interactive than your average stage. Feel free to interrupt me. I'm watching the polls, the chat, and all that good stuff live in real time. But with that, I want to jump into something known as future thinking. And I want to make sure my slides work. There we go. Let's try that. So here we go. Just getting all situated and set up. With that being said, future thinking. I think future thinking is a skill set that everyone and anyone can benefit from. And I look at the world and you start to just depict, who can benefit from future thinking and who can't. Well, it's kind of like innate for a person to develop this concept of themselves and their future and their collective societal future around them. And that understanding becomes the constitution for growth, whether it be your personal life, your work life, your love life, anything, right? When you start to look at the elements, you kind of need to have this sense of where you're going. And if you don't, then you might be one of the people that are referred to as lacking vision. And you don't want to be in that camp. No one really likes to feel like they can't see, what's ahead of them, or the proverbial light at the end of the tunnel. And knowing that, I like this saying where it says vision it and manifest it. And your future thinking ability might lead you to an idea that you pitch for your startup company, or maybe it leads you to an idea that you pitch to your boss that allows you to activate, a new region or campaign. And what it does is it puts you in this position where you can succeed. It puts you in this position where you can get a promotion. And your future thinking ability might help you avoid the deterioration of certain social relationships, because you can keep them refreshed and you can keep them on edge and you can keep people intellectually captivated. And you can look ahead and make considerations and make thoughts and see things that you're at this conference, Texylvania. You're looking beyond borders. You're looking to see what's next, what's emerging, what are the leaders in your space saying. And knowing that, I want to share a few future thinking fundamentals with you all. And these are just a few things that I've learned in my path, because my path's a little bit different than most, right? When I started, when I was like 13, I was 13 years old and I started a company and I didn't know what I was doing. I was selling things. At that time, I was selling these introductory DJ courses to colleges and universities, mainly targeted at their youth, and saying, hey, kids want to be engaged, interactive things such as learning how to DJ that will like allow the kids to be better engaged. And I sold a bunch of classes in curriculum and programming, but it was my future thinking ability to say, hey, this concept of schooling isn't really working, because kids are disengaged. They're on their phones, they're texting. And this was true in when I was 13. So this is almost 10 years, like 14 years ago, right? And what's evolved since then is, we've seen other means, other devices kind of come into our lives. I mean, TikTok is all the craze right now, especially in the States, with some of the allegations that they have, and just kind of provisions that the government's trying to make in that case. But I'm not trying to, get into any of the political natures of the world at large. I really just want to share some future thinking fundamentals and concepts to remember. So with that, let's get into it. I'm going to talk about the first concept, which is compounding interest. If you are rocking with us in the chat, I want you to just drop something saying that you're familiar with compounding interest. Drop an emoji, drop a side. Let me know what your thoughts on compounding interest is. Shout out to the people that are rocking with us in Romania. I see you in the chat, so I'm saying hey. And now I'm going to talk about this first fundamental concept of future thinking known as compounding interest. Now, compounding interest is something that I like to think of beyond the world of finance. Everyone talks about it from this lens of finance. I want to talk about it from the lens of Picasso. So Picasso lived for a total of 3,403 days. This is important because Picasso also published 26,075 pieces of published works. That means Picasso averaged one piece of artwork for every day of his life from age 20 until his death at age 91. Now, he became the best in the world at art, or one of the best in the world at art. I mean, I don't want to get into, any asides with the art critics and being like, Picasso's not, my favorite artist. He's not the best artist. Aside from all that, Picasso is widely regarded as one of the best artists of his time. And he became the best by creating something new every day for 71 years. Imagine if Picasso said, hey, I just don't have the vision. I don't see the piece, and didn't do it. Well, he wouldn't be able to grow his ability, and he was able to change his art style. When you start to look at, Picasso's whole body of work, you'll see that, he has different styles. The piece that I put on stage here is one of my favorites because, it's Picasso's bull. He's able to just elegantly describe a bull in just a series of minimalist lines. And that's an aside that we can talk about art. We can appreciate art all we want, but I want to talk about future thinking. And future thinking is something that you don't have to walk into and be Steve Jobs or Elon Musk tomorrow, right? That's not how this works. You don't even have to be Oprah Winfrey. Like, I consider her a future thinker tomorrow. What's up? Someone's I think we have somebody on the stream. Okay, maybe it'll stream my event. But with that being said, I was going to say, like, Oprah, like, she's a future thinker. There's a lot of future thinkers, but they don't become future thinkers by waking up one day and saying, oh, I'm a future thinker. This is a muscle they have to grow, just like any other thing, just like a bank account. If your bank account grows by 1% every single day, then in 1 year's time, you'd be about 37% richer. I mean, 37 times richer, right, than what you were the day you wanted, right? And likewise, if you improved at an action at 1% every single day, by the end of the year, you'll be 37 times better at that action. That's the mindset that I need you to take and embark on when it comes to future thinking, because future thinking is one of those things that you evolve into. Reg Gabriel, I see you rocking. Yes, I was rocking at 13. That is some advanced future thinking. Thank you for the comment. Again, if you're in the chat, in the comments, please make this interactive and engaging. This is the power of online visual power presentations, is I can be there and here at the same time. Not possible in a physical environment. But no matter the outlet, future thinking understands that consistent actions take an evolutionary period, day over day, and it will pay off 3 days from now, 3 years from now, and even 3 decades from now. So that's the first concept, right? Compounding interest, just do the work, show up 1% every single day. You'll thank me later. The second concept that's really helped me out a ton is something that I like to call pattern recognition. So rock with me here if you're live, and if you've got any questions or again any asides on the content on the screen, please drop that with me in the chat. I'm watching it. I love the people that engage and interact with me. It gives me a pulse for how things are going. But as we get into it, pattern recognition is one of those things that I personally think is very, very powerful. I'm going to give a tech analogy really quick, and I'm going to go back because there's other platforms that we could do this with, but Craigslist is something that I think the world is familiar with right now. And you might have seen this in other presentations. I'm going to take it my own way, but I want to use this example. So from 2000 to 2010, we had this era where Craigslist was literally giving away billion-dollar startup companies for free. Like you could, well, not companies, but ideas. And those ideas you could start a company around, right? And the Craigslist homepage notoriously housed like the earliest beginnings of more than 34 multi-billion-dollar companies. Let me say that again. The Craigslist homepage housed the earliest beginnings of more than 34 multi-billion-dollar companies. What are some of those companies? Chegg, Etsy, Airbnb, Lending Club, Quora, Uber. They all existed as concepts on Craigslist years before those companies were started. And they call this era, if you want to research this more, it's called the unbundling of Craigslist. You might remember now from like 2010 to about, I would say 2016, 17, we had the unbundling of Uber. Like there was an Uber for this, an Uber for that, that. I remember that era. Every pitch almost started off with like, think of Uber, but for this. And like it was the on-demand gig economy, right? Now I would say we're in the unbundling era of Zoom, right? And video, right? We're doing this conference through a platform called Hopin. Traditionally, had you wanted to do this just 2-3 years ago, Zoom would have been the delta and vector at which you would have made that happen. And now looking at where we are today, pattern recognition is an ability that most future thinkers should get really good at. And here's why. Trends, ideas, products, they are adopted across all different industries, right? And social circles also look at the trends, ideas, products, and they adopt those as well at varying intervals. It's not saying it's a one-for-one equation. It's one of those things that if you can recognize the pattern, then you probably can have this ability to see a trend emerge in its infancy in one area of society and then formulate a hypothesis on how it can emerge in another area of society. And the foundations of pattern recognition is information consumption, I believe. You have to intake, you got to feed that brain. How do you get better at doing something? Well, you have to learn something. And learning is the process of going out and observing. And so with that being said, you have to be a sponge. Like, a sponge can never absorb too much water, right? And the future thinker is always consuming, always processing, always storing information, writing things down. It doesn't matter how you jot it down. It doesn't matter if you jot it down as an Apple Note. It doesn't matter if you write it down on paper. It doesn't matter if you email it to yourself. You're storing it in a way that you can come back to it and remember it in the future at some point. And all I say is like pattern recognition is probably one of the most helpful skills in a side to compounding interest. And this next skill that I'm going to get to, someone said in the comments that compounding interest is the eighth wonder of the world, and he who understands it earns, but he who doesn't pays. I think that's a valuable concept. Thanks for calling that out. I'm going to jump into my next slide here. And remember, y'all, I'm going to keep this short. So we're almost halfway through this presentation. I'm going to give you these topics, these concepts to think on, and then we're going to, get back into the Q&A. So with that, outlasting motivation is a concept that I've been rocking with for some time because this is what keeps future thinkers ahead, right? If you can see this vision and you are putting in the work day over day to get to that vision, and you're also iterating on that vision through pattern recognition and spotting things and trends that are emerging, then it's all about this concept of outlasting motivation. Now, I know outlasting motivation sounds all grandiose and it's like, what does it actually mean? In my mind, in layman's terms, I think of it as the first to stay motivated. So your outlasting motivation is this area or vertical at which you measure yourself on how motivated are you. Are you more motivated than the other people that are working on the idea? Are you more motivated than the other people that might have a glimpse of that vision? And collectively, we put a lot of emphasis on original ideas in society. I've oftentimes heard my friends mention something along the lines of, "I've got this $1 million idea." Let me know in the comments if you've heard the same thing, or if you might have even felt that way. I mean, my boss is on a show called Shark Tank, and he instills this belief in everyone that ideas are everywhere, right? Execution is everything, and it's not about, I would say, just execution or the idea. It's about being first to stay motivated. Why is that? Why is that important? I look at it as like, execution. If you look at this chart, no one's really knocking any of these companies for execution. Yahoo did a decent job of execution, MSN, Dogpile, Ask Jeeves, AOL. I mean, I remember the internet in the early 90s. And, these were all very prominent search engines, right? Like most people had a Yahoo Mail account or a Hotmail account before they had a Gmail account. If you can rock with this analogy or this story I'm telling, please let me know in the chat. Just tell me what provider or what was your favorite search engine in the early days. I'm talking about before Google really had a homepage, if you know what I mean. And Google, ironically enough, was the 9th search engine to be founded. Just think on that. They were the 9th search engine to be founded. The number 9. They were introduced to the world and they were like, number 9. That's crazy. Number 9. Let's do it like that. Number 9. Visualize that. So there's 9 people in front of Google. 9 prominent people. I mean, you got Yahoo leading the pack. You got AOL leading the pack. I'm talking about these are dope companies. And if I look at the world in 2020, what the hell is Google 9th at today? They might be 2nd, they might be 3rd at something, but they're usually best in the class, top tier. And how did they get there? Google was simply the first to stay motivated, right? Someone said Alta Vista was amazing. Yeah, I remember Alta Vista. Alta Vista was great. It was probably one of the few browsers where, it had this clean minimalist design and they had this like vibrant red logo. I remember that. Like, yeah, keep rocking with me in the chat. I like this. Y'all are coming alive. It took a second, but keep rocking with me. I'm going to get back to this Google concept. Google stayed motivated, right? And when you think about the engineers, the operators, the people behind it, you have to have this innate ability to just keep pushing at this. You have to keep pushing at this construct that you have, this vision that you have. And it's not enough to just be a dreamer. You have to do the work, right? And knowing that, I think that, a future thinker is much more than a dreamer. They are creators. They put rubber to the pavement and they never allow their ambition to outrun their actions. Remember, a future thinker is more than a dreamer. They are definitely creators and they never allow their ambition to outrun their actions, because they see this and they're saying, hey, I'm just gonna stay motivated. And it's not enough to have an idea of the future. One must execute that in order to like bring that vision to life. And if they don't, it'll never happen, right? So if you don't stay motivated, more than likely somebody else will make that happen. And the only constant in life is change, right? And future thinkers understand this principle. Therefore, they can take anything from sneakers to stocks to television and technology and formulate this educated vision on how it might change. And that's what it means to be a future thinker. So with that, I'm going to get into this section known as tactics for future thinking. These are some of the more less proverbial fundamentals that are just, mental models, and more of like, okay, how do I actually put this into practice? And the first thing I would say is asking the right questions, right? Albert Einstein has this quote where he said, if I had an hour to solve a problem and my life depended on it, I would spend the first 55 minutes determining the proper questions to ask. Think about that. Albert Einstein, one of the greatest minds to ever exist, the theory of relativity, a bunch of other things that I don't want to nerd out with y'all, because y'all not here to hear me nerd about Albert Einstein. Y'all are here to hear me talk about future thinking. So with that, right? Albert Einstein said, I'm going to say this again because I know we're watching virtually, so I just want it to be felt. If I had an hour to solve a problem and my life depended on it, I would spend the first 55 minutes determining the proper questions to ask. That's a big deal. That means he would probably only execute for 5 minutes, but he would be asking the questions so that he can build the basis of his understanding. So when it comes to future thinking, what are some of those questions? Well, I can't give you all of the things. I can't tell you how to do it, but I can show you, right? And in my mind, what I look at is five different pillars. I look at the cultural lens, right? So when I see a new trend, when I see a new topic, when I see anything, it doesn't really matter if it's a decision that's made about a company strategy or if it's a new product that's released. I look at it from these five lenses, and I want you to rock with me in the chat. If you're paying attention and you're following along, I want you to just jot down these five things in the chat so others can see it. This is the part where we're going to make this interactive. So the first thing is the cultural lens. I look at the things like, think about it from like a camera perspective. So I'm gonna talk about this through the lens of a camera. Camera, you have the body, and then you put different lenses on to get different pictures. And the first lens that I put on something when it comes time to make things pop off is the cultural lens. I start to think about it from the sense of, can this influence the behaviors of a group of people? And like, what is the cultural impacts from this new trend or from this new thing that I see emerging? The second thing that I look at is the economic lens. Is this worth something, and will people pay for it, right? The third thing I look at is the improvement lens. How would I change this to make it more effective? And then the fourth thing that I look at is the repackaging lens, right? How could this be remarketed or resold to a different population? And then the fifth thing I ask myself is, why is the timing right for this trend to emerge right now? Why is this going to be a massive thing today versus tomorrow or in 5 years into the future? And so those are a few questions. Happy to talk a bit more on this section in the chat that we're about to get into here shortly. But with that being said, I want to talk about the second little tactic that I like to get into, and that is called second order thinking. After you have the right questions, you need to be able to ask yourself, what would happen if this thing became true? And so Marcel Bick unveiled this thing known as the Bic crystal pen. If you've ever used a Bic crystal pen, let me know in the comments. Most of us probably have. It came out in 1959, and it was the cheapest ballpoint pen to ever hit the market by a long shot. And when this came on the market, this ballpoint pen was only 19 cents. At the time, the average price of a ballpoint pen was about $10. And it was obvious that this would be a global phenomenon. Another piece of technology that we realized was going to be a global phenomenon was the iPhone when this first came out, right? When the iPhone first came out, people were like, yo, that's going to be something. It's going to mean something. And just like the iPhone, people bought the Bic in droves, right? And it wouldn't take a genius to say, hey, this is going to be massive. The impact is going to be felt worldwide. But nobody understood that the cheap ballpoint Bic pen is probably the same reason why cursive handwriting is less used today. So let me break this down. At the time, you had a fountain pen and you had the ballpoint pen that was now cheap, right? It's like 19 cents. Fountain pens, messy, ink, you gotta like do all this stuff, but you can make this incredible penmanship, and your writing has like a soul or some type of energy behind it. This ballpoint pen, you got to press it down, you got to draw clean stick lines because you got to put pressure to get that ball moving and release that ink, right? And that was not true with the fluidness of just a traditional fountain pen. And so what would happen is people started to use more ballpoint pens, and that led to people developing a different style of writing, and that style of writing would ultimately end up winning because people started to write in blocks, not necessarily as fluid lines and cursive. And, just unconsciously, we now write in print as opposed to the cursive script that most of us learned in our younger years in like primary school and things of that nature. So, how many people do you know still write in cursive today? Is that a problem that people can no longer read and write in cursive, especially the younger generation? Is it something that we're losing or are we gaining, right? These are questions that you ask yourself, and it's best for you to decide. If you feel on one side of the fence, maybe you see something that is an opportunity in the world. If you feel content with it, maybe you feel like we've evolved and now we're in a new world and we can develop a better understanding. And this is a simple exercise that I like to use to describe second order thinking, because we all are pretty much familiar with this technology known as the pen. There's tons of examples of second order thinking. Happy to elaborate on this in the chat, but this is one of the things that I think you must think about from a tactical standpoint whenever you're thinking about future thinking and future ideas and future thinking frameworks. Now, I'm going to finish up here and we're going to talk about my last slide. I guess I know we got to go to Q&A. I got 2 more slides. Are they? There we go. Yeah, disruptive thinking. So just to conclude really quick, the quickest way to change your thinking is to change the way you act. So much of our thinking is kind of based on these behaviors that we engage in every day. And we never think about, some of the new innovations because we've built these habits and these patterns that just don't ever evolve. Like they just kind of stay in this steady state, and that goes on for years, and it's a perpetual cycle that you need to break. And whether it's cooking, yoga, technology, anything you do, start to think about what could be different. There's a new phone out. It's called the Samsung Galaxy Fold. I have it here with me, right? This looks a lot different. It's got 3 screens on it. It folds. It's got almost a tablet and a device. It looks a lot different than my iPhone, right? This is disruptive thinking. This is what it looks like. Is it perfect? No. But, we've never really seen a foldable phone that, is practical and has all the features that, we're seeing. The iPhone, when it came out, was, disruptive. And you have to be more spontaneous in your actions and more unpredictable in your thinking. And once you start to just do that naturally, you've started to master the skills of future thinking. You can find me on the internet at Quharrison. Thank you for watching and rocking with this. We're going to jump into, what is it called? The Q&A section of this chat. And with that being said, I'm happy to answer any questions and do what we got to do.
Quharrison, this was amazing. I really love the energy. It feels like joining a Peloton class. So it feels like you need to get going and start your next billion-dollar company. I really love that. I'm sure the audience is now all up and code their next billion-dollar idea. So with that, for the audience, as Quharrison said, you can jump on, hop into the QA section. So he'll be there right in a minute, taking your questions where you can have a more intimate chat with him. So thank you very much, Quharrison, for joining us here.
Can you hear me?
And looking forward to see more on the Q&A section.